Explanation of the David Foster Wallace essay, In While I Vision. I really enjoy this essay a lot. This is one of the favorite lectures that I've ever read, and actually more than most things that I've ever read, it's had an impact on the way that I view the world. Or at least I try to make it have an impact on the way I view the world, because it's something that, as he talks about, it kind of takes constant effort to be able to view the world this way. So I'm going to kind of talk through an explanation of this and also kind of talk through these questions at the end, just kind of weave all this stuff together. But, one of the things I really like about this is, he talks about how our natural default setting, and this is like if you buy a computer and that's the way it comes when it's out of the box, that's the way it was designed, that's the way everyone's designed. And I think probably on some level that's probably an evolutionary thing in terms of just survival. You've got to pay attention to yourself, but and the things that you're thinking, but you've kind of got this, and by you I mean everyone has this kind of constant monologue running through their head. And I've talked about this in class before. It's really hard to shut that off because every situation you're in is about you. It's about how you're feeling in a particular situation, or the things you're thinking about, or the things that are going through your mind, and it's really hard to be able to consider other possibilities that don't directly involve you. And he said this is the kind of natural default setting. And this is the way it's been with every single person that's ever lived. But the thing is, if you can learn to think differently, or at least explore other possibilities, or allow yourself to think about other possibilities, it may make your life happier, or at least less angry. He gives the example of waiting in line at the checkout line. And, I tend to be impatient, and if I'm driving behind someone slowly in traffic, I get angry at them. But after reading this, and it doesn't happen all the time because it's something you kind of have to constantly be reminding yourself about, I do try to think about other possibilities. So to get into the questions a little bit, number one, it talks about the fish in the water. What does that have to do with anything? Just as fish don't necessarily even know that they're in water because they've never been in anything else, at least until I read this essay, it was like someone pointed out what water to me was. Because they were pointing out to me the way that I was thinking, and because every situation you're in is about you, unless you can actively choose to think about things differently, you don't. And so because everything's about you, if you're uncomfortable or tired or angry, it's all about you. And so he gives the example in here of, they're waiting in the checkout line and he sees someone, a parent, getting angry at their kid, yelling at him or spanking him on the butt or whatever. And I know that I'm guilty of judging people when they do that. But he says, other than just assuming that they're a bad parent, because that's the way when you're viewing that situation through you, because you would say, I would never act like that. I would be a much better parent than that. So therefore, that person must be a crappy parent. Exploring and allowing yourself to consider other possibilities that maybe they got something hard going on in their life. And the example he gives is maybe they were up all night with their spouse who's dying of cancer. And if that was the case, and if that's been going on for days and days and days, clearly they've got a very, very difficult situation going on, and maybe it has little to do with how the kid was acting and just more to do with what's going on in their own life. So an example for you as students, if you have that teacher who's in a really bad mood or snaps at a kid or it seems grouchy or angry all the time, maybe it doesn't have anything to do with you as students. It's hard to view teachers as something other than just this teacher who they're up in front of the class and this is all they do. But I've used this expression, when I walk into school I put my Mr. Kruger mask on. And so if I've got something hard going on in my life, basically I'm not necessarily required, but it's my goal to kind of leave that at the door and not bring that into the class. But it's really hard to do that. Okay, so this is one easy little way that you can kind of try to practice this a little bit. If a teacher's snapping at you, maybe it has nothing to do with you. Maybe it does. But allowing yourself to consider the possibility that it could have something to do with something going on in their life or something going on at home will maybe allow you to not hate that person and therefore not quite be as angry about what's going on in your class. Number two, he talks about, uses the term well-adjusted. And he talked about the natural default settings. So if you buy a computer and you just take it out of the box and plug it in and set it up, the settings that it's has when you take it out of the box are its default settings. This is just the way it was designed. And this is the way people have been designed. Everyone thinks this way. Okay, and it's kind of, he talks about it's kind of socially repulsive to talk about being this self-centered, but everybody is this way. I certainly include myself in this. And to even be able to consider other possibilities takes a lot of effort because you kind of have to constantly remind yourself, because it's really easy to slide back into that judgmental putting yourself at the center of everything. And so someone who's well adjusted allows them to adjust their default settings into a way which will allow them to be probably happier, or at least more patient with people, and compassionate. And I think that if you can be that way, and maybe this is just my opinion, but you probably will be a happier person, because a lot of the frustration and anger you feel in various situations will kind of go away if you allow yourself to think about different things. Number 3, he talks about learning how to think. And so this is that process of learning how to think. It's the process of learning how to change that default setting and to allow yourself to consider other possibilities. So instead of just this teacher's acting like a jerk and they hate kids, maybe something hard's going on in their life. Maybe it's not. But if you even allow yourself to consider the possibility that maybe something hard is going on in their life, it's going to allow you to be less angry at that person or less put off by that teacher. Just kind of giving people the benefit of the doubt, basically, and allowing that maybe the way you view things isn't the way the world really is. Maybe that isn't reality. Maybe it's just the way you think of things. Sorry, keeping an eye on baby too. Number 4, according to Wallace, is our default setting. We talked about that. Number 5, he gives on this last page 2 examples of what capital T truth is. The first one is that you get to decide what you're going to worship. And I think this is an interesting way to look at it. People tend to view worshiping as just a religious idea, and you either worship, a deity of some sort, a religion of some sort, or you don't worship anything. But if you're more of an atheist, but really, anything that you put that much value into is what you're worshiping. And so if your sole goal in life is to make as much money as you can, that's what you're worshiping. You're worshiping money. You're worshiping buying things and purchases. If you put a lot of stock in how attractive you are, that's what you worship. You worship your own beauty, and you're constantly working out, and you're constantly buying new clothes or trying to make yourself look as good as you can. And he said the problem with worshiping these things, and he said why it's probably a good idea to worship some sort of God or deity, is that everything else is going to make you feel like crap. If you put stock and put value in how you look, you're never going to look good to yourself, because you're always going to think, what could I do to look better? Or if you put value in how smart you are, you're always going to be thinking, man, I got to be smart, I got to be smart, I got to be smart, and you're always going to end up feeling not very smart. And he said the other capital T truth, and this is what I really like, he said, I don't want to get into what happens after death or religion or big ideas of belief. He said, for me, the real truth is about the life you're living right now and how you get through life and be happy with yourself and be happy with the world around you and not hate everything. And he said, making it 30 or 50 without wanting to shoot yourself in the head. It's really ironic and sad that he couldn't do this. I don't know exactly what happened when he committed suicide, but he was unable to live this life this way. And he said, I understand how hard it is to do this. He said, it's unimaginably hard to be paying attention and being conscious of the way you think day in and day out, because it's constantly reminding yourself to take a step back and to try to look at things from different possibilities. Last question is, our present culture has created great freedom for us. And the freedom is that we don't need to necessarily, for the most part, worry about shelter, worry about food, worry about getting attacked by animals or getting attacked by, Maslow's hierarchy for a lot of people anyway, is fairly well taken care of. Not everybody, and there's situations where money issues play a role in this, and maybe things aren't as stable as you can, but if Maslow's hierarchy is taken care of, you spend a lot of time in your head, because you don't need to be out chopping wood, you don't need to be out hunting, you don't need to be out defending your house, and so because of that, you get to be the lord of your own tiny skull-sized kingdom. Everything that happens is up in your brain. Okay, and because so much of time is spent in your brain, so much of your day-to-day life is spent with that monologue telling you and just kind of commenting on everything around you. If you don't learn to adjust that default setting, if you don't learn to explore the possibilities, you're going to be stressed out, or you're going to be angry, or you're going to be bitter, or you're going to be bored. I think the other really good example he gave is the example of the store. He said, you as students don't know what day in, day out means yet. You're used to, you go to school and you see the same people every day and you do the same stuff, but until you've done the same job for a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, and who knows, with people living longer and Social Security in rough shape, you may work for a really long time. until you know what that's like to get up and do the same job and see the same people and sit at the same desk over and over and over. And then after that, you got a lot more responsibilities, and you have to do the grocery shopping, and you have to do the yard work, and you have to do the house cleaning, because otherwise it's not going to get done. If you can step back and find some meaning in doing those things, your life's going to be a lot happier. Okay? And so I think that this is it's something interesting to try to think about. He's not telling you how to think. He's not telling you what to think. What he's telling you is to try to pay attention to what you're thinking about and decide if that's what you want to be thinking about or not. And if you choose to decide that, yes, this is how I think, that's great. He said, but at least then you're conscious of what's going on. And so, his kind of overall goal is to just really pay attention to what you're thinking about and the way you're thinking. Are you exploring as many possibilities as you can, or as there are available? Or are you just kind of making everything narrow and walleye vision focus on yourself and the way you are and the way you interact in various situations? Think about it. Bye.